So, herzlich willkommen bei der Konferenz Achtsamkeit und Migration in einer sich ständig wandelnden Welt.
Welcome to the conference, Mindfulness and Migration in the Constantly Changing World.
Wir haben uns jetzt noch die letzten paar Minuten darüber ausgetauscht, wie toll es eigentlich ist, was die Pandemie auch uns gezeigt hat, dass wir uns anders vernetzen können, nämlich digital.
We just talked to exchange some words in the last minutes, and we found out how really great it is that because of the pandemic, we can network ourselves in different ways.
Und dass es Themen gibt und Diskussionsfelder, die überall auf der Welt gleich sind.
And that you have topics and fields of discussion that are the same all over the world.
Ja, und eben auch Werte und Prinzipien, Wünsche und Hoffnungen, die universal sind.
And you have values and principles, wishes and hope that are universal.
Und an dieser Stelle noch ein Dankeschön an den Zukunftsfonds der Republik Österreich für die finanzielle Unterstützung.
Danke, Jakob, für diese einführenden Worte. Ja, auf den kommenden Beitrag habe ich mich schon ganz besonders gefreut, vor allem, weil er mir auch vor Augen führt, wie nah wir zusammen sein können, obwohl wir es an so unterschiedlichen Orten leben. Also schon allein vom Ort. Elaine Miller-Karas lebt in Kalifornien, da ist es gerade 9 Uhr in der Früh. Kateryna Zeziulina lebt in der Ukraine, da ist es 7 Uhr am Abend und in Österreich ist es gerade 6 Uhr am Abend und dann sind noch Menschen aus anderen Ländern dabei und wir haben alle die Möglichkeit, uns eigentlich im selben Raum zu treffen.
I think it's nice. Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm looking forward to the next presentation, and it shows us how close we can all be. We're all in different parts of the world. Elaine is in California. It's 9 a.m. there, and Kateryna is in Ukraine. It's 7 p.m. there, and in Austria at 6 p.m. So it's really nice that this can happen.
Ich möchte nicht lange reden. Mir ist es nur wichtig, die Gesprächspartnerinnen und Gesprächspartner vorzustellen, kurz, damit Sie einen kurzen Überblick bekommen können, wer mit welchem Hintergrund in dieses Gespräch reinkommt.
I don't want to spend a lot of time talking, but I just want to shortly introduce the speakers so you know with what kind of background they're coming into this presentation.
Zuerst möchte ich Kateryna Zeziulina aus der Ukraine vorstellen. Sie lebt derzeit in der Ostukraine. Ich habe von ihr gelesen, dass sie als Friedenspädagogin dort arbeitet und dass sie sich sehr intensiv mit dem Thema auseinandersetzt, was Friedenspädagogik denn überhaupt bedeuten kann, was jetzt gerade in der Ukraine passiert.
The first is Kateryna Zeziulina, and she lives in East Ukraine. And she's focused on the peace pedagogic and what does this actually mean, this whole, and she's going to explain to you about that.
And what does it mean, especially at this time in Ukraine? So because it's another subject than it was in another time. Ja, dann möchte ich noch Elaine Miller-Karas vorstellen. Also schön, dass ihr alle da seid. Sie lebt in Kalifornien, ist Mitgründerin vom Trauma Resource Institute und ist auch Mitgründerin vom Ukrainian Humanitarian Resiliency Projekt, das jetzt gerade in der Ukraine läuft, das mit 25. Februar gestartet hat. Ein Online-Angebot für Menschen, die jetzt in der Ukraine leben.
And then I want to present Elaine Miller-Karas. She's co-founder of the Trauma Resource Institute in California, and also the co-founder of the Ukrainian Humanitarian Resource Project, which was just started on the 25th of February. and it's an online offer to people who are currently living in the Ukraine.
Als dritten Sprecher möchte ich noch gern Jakob Fürst vorstellen. Er ist Politikwissenschaftler und er hat uns auch den Kontakt mit Elaine Miller-Karas ermöglicht, worüber wir uns sehr freuen, dass wir so in Kontakt gekommen sind. Und er hat vor ein paar Jahren im C-Learning-Programm, C-Learning steht für soziales, emotionales und ethisches Lernen, in der Ukraine gearbeitet und dort auch Elaine Miller-Karas kennengelernt. Und er wird vor allem über die Erfahrungen in dieser Zeit in der Ukraine und auch über das Programm selbst sprechen.
The third person I'd like to introduce is Jacob Fürst, and he's a political scientist. And through him, we got in contact with Elaine, and he's a few years ago, he founded the C-Learning program, which means socially, emotionally, and ethical. And we just want to see how his experiences, what his experiences have been so far in the Ukraine.
Und abschließend möchte ich noch sagen, was der Hintergrund ist, warum wir diese drei Menschen zur selben Zeit zum Sprechen zusammengebracht haben. Und zwar in den Gesprächen mit den dreien ist mir auch klar geworden, wie die Zusammenhänge sind, dass zum Beispiel das heutige Programm, das Elaine mitbegründet hat für die Ukraine, dass da maßgeblich ausschlaggebend war, dass es überhaupt jetzt angenommen wird, war die Implementierung von C-Learning. Und das war für mich sehr spannend zu erfahren, dass es da Zusammenhänge gibt. Und da ist es natürlich schön, wenn wir jetzt auch die Möglichkeit haben, darüber da Fragen zu stellen.
And the closing sentence is why we have these three people talking at the same time, presenting at the same time today. And it's because of the connections, because Elaine co-founded her foundation, and because it was accepted because of the implementation of the C-Learning. And I want to give us some possibilities that we can find out how it all works together.
Und was uns ganz wichtig dabei war, und Jakob Fürst hat uns zum Glück dann nochmals darauf hingewiesen, dass wir das wirklich tun sollen, auch versuchen, einen Menschen zu finden, der die Möglichkeit hat, der jetzt in der Ukraine ist und die Möglichkeit hat, daran teilzunehmen, weil uns auch klar ist, dass es immer schwierig ist, über andere Menschen zu sprechen, sondern viel einfacher ist es, gerade wenn es ein Unterstützungsangebot gibt, einmal bei den Menschen, für die es gedacht ist, zu fragen, ja, passt das denn überhaupt oder wie kommt das an? Und deshalb freuen wir uns wirklich, dass Kateryna Zeziulina eine Möglichkeit gefunden hat, heute da zu sein.
And what Jacob said, it's really important that we should try to find a person in the Ukraine that could take part and really tell us what's going on, because it's always difficult to talk about somebody when we're not on site there. So I think that's why we invited Kateryna. She's able to take part today.
Und an dieser Stelle möchte ich jetzt auch gleich Kateryna das Wort übergeben. Und zwar, ich möchte einfach mal fragen, was du erzählen möchtest, wie das alltägliche Leben jetzt in der Ukraine aussieht. Also damit wir vielleicht ein bisschen eine Vorstellung bekommen, was das bedeuten kann, aus welchem Ort du gerade da hier jetzt teilnimmst.
And I want to give you the word, Kateryna. What you want to explain about what's going on here in Ukraine? Where are you in Ukraine? How's the situation over there?
Ingrid asked me about the situation in Ukraine right now, and I believe I have a lot of things to say, and I would really love to have a special opportunity to share with you the previous experience we have, and what is the situation right now with the educational sphere. Saying shortly or starting the conversation, I can say that now I'm situated in Dnipro, that is eastern part of Ukraine, and for neighboring regions have either occupied by Russian troops or having active military attacks there. So far, my region and my city is totally controlled by Ukrainian army, but time to time we have missile attacks, and that's the situation that we live right now. Like during the day, there are several sirenas on outside, and we are trying to keep ourselves safe, being either inside or in the shelter. Nevertheless, it's quite hard to do this as well, you still need to live, 74 days, you cannot hide yourself in the basement waiting for the missile. You still need to go out, you need to work, to do your normal life, do groceries. So one of the once when I was doing grocery last week, I saw missile flying above. So that's the situation I live right now. This is the reply for short reply for the question you asked right now.
Okay, ist eine kurze Antwort. Ich bin in einer Stadt Dnipro, das ist im Osten der Ukraine, und die Gegenden ringsherum sind von russischen Soldaten und von der russischen Armee kontrolliert, besetzt. Aber unsere Region ist noch von der ukrainischen Armee kontrolliert. Aber wir versuchen immer, manchmal sieht man ein paar Raketen, aber man muss dann drin bleiben oder im Keller bleiben. 74 Tage schon kann man nicht einfach im Keller sich verstecken. Man muss da einkaufen gehen. Letzte Woche war ich einkaufen und da habe ich eine Rakete über mich fliegen sehen. Und das ist so die Situation im Moment.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing the situation right now in the Ukraine. Yeah, I guess it's a very tough time. And yeah, and I'd like to ask Elaine, because you are working with people who are living right now in the Ukraine, and you offer a resiliency project online and on Facebook as well. You've told me. Can you tell us more a bit what exactly you do, how people can reach this offer, and how this program started?
Firstly, I want to thank Kateryna for being in Ukraine and sharing her personal experiences right now. And Kateryna, I just want you to know, from all the way from California, I am giving you a virtual hug if you want to receive it. And you are always, all the Ukrainians right now are in my heart, and wanting to help in whatever way possible. But do I need to wait for the translation? Yes. Okay.
Ja, Kateryna, ich weiß, was Sie durchmachen, aber ganz hier von Kalifornien versuche ich gebe Ihnen eine virtuelle Umarmung, und ich hoffe, Sie sollen stark bleiben.
So the next thing I want to say is an acknowledgement of Jakub first. He was my host in Kharkiv. He took me all around Kharkiv, and even invited me to his house for dinner with a number of other individuals. And this is also about relationship. And I think that if I had not engaged with the Ukrainian delegation in India in 2019, where they invited me to come to Kharkiv to talk about the model that I've created called the Community Resiliency Model, which is embedded in C Learning, we would not all be together today. At least I wouldn't be here, I don't think.
Und ich möchte gerne Jakub auch danken, weil der war mein Gastgeber in der Ukraine, der hat mich sogar zum Essen eingeladen und hat mir die Stadt gezeigt. Und das Ganze würde nicht möglich gewesen sein, wenn ich nicht in Indien in 2019 die ukrainische Delegation kennengelernt habe. Und das Ganze, dieses CRM, was wir haben, ist in diesen C-Learning integriert.
So I am a senior consultant to the C-Learning program that was inspired by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And it comes out of Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia.
Ich bin eine Beraterin von diesem C-Lernprogramm und das wurde von den Dalai Lama erschaffen. Und das haben wir in der Emory Universität zur Welt gebracht.
So since I went to Ukraine in the fall of 2019, I have continued to be a consultant to the EdCamp Ukraine program in Ukraine as they have grown their program with C-Learning.
Nach 2019 war ich in der Ukraine und bin immer noch Beraterin dort und mit diesem EdCamp, ukrainische, und das Programm enthält immer noch dieses C-Learning.
So I had been working actively since December of 2021 with Alexander Elkin, who's one of the leaders of EdCamp Ukraine, worried about the Russians gathering at the border and wanting to bring the larger program called the Community Resiliency Model to EdCamp and to provide a teacher training program for them through the humanitarian arm of the Trauma Resource Institute, the nonprofit I founded.
Und Dezember 2021 habe ich wegen Alexander Elkin, ist einer der Leiter von dem EdCamp in der Ukraine, und er war besorgt, dass die russischen Soldaten sich an der Grenze da gesammelt haben. Und er wollte dieses CRM-Programm integrieren in diesen EdCamp und als Lehrer-Training-Programm, so ein Lehrprogramm.
So on February 24th, the day the bombing started in Ukraine, we had already scheduled a meeting to plan the structure of the teacher training program. And we quickly switched directions when we realized what had happened with the war starting, and we were asked to provide workshops in the community resiliency model, which I'll explain briefly in just a moment.
Und im Februar, 24. Februar, als die Bomben anfingen, haben wir schon die Besprechung eingeplant gehabt für dieses Lehrer-Trainingprogramm. Und wir mussten dann die Richtung wechseln und wir mussten dann Workshops zusammenbauen, und das werde ich gleich mehr Details erklären.
And so since the materials of our model were already translated into Ukrainian from being in Ukraine in 2019 when I first met Jakob, and also because of the conference that I participated in December, we were really ready to already prepare to give workshops in Ukrainian to the Ukrainian community. So we were ready to go. On February 25th, we did our first webinar.
Und wir waren wegen dieser, in 2019 haben wir das Modell wir waren schon bereit, wir hatten das schon integriert gehabt und mit Jakob, und wir konnten dann sofort das Ganze umwandeln, und am 25. Februar haben wir schon unser erstes Webinar gehalten.
And so what's also, I want to say what's important about scaling well-being when individuals in such a massive way are experiencing trauma, that the relationships that we build and the relationships that each one of you may have in different organizations with different people make a huge difference in terms of responding to this kind of widespread trauma.
Das ist wichtig in der in dem Skalieren von Wohlbefinden, dass die Beziehung, die ihr habt mit Leuten und die aufbaut, das ist sehr wichtig in diesem Konzept mit der Trauma umzugehen.
Now, I know that some of you were in the presentation that occurred before this presentation, but the information that Edita shared with everyone is really essential. And I really, Ingrid, I want to just say to your team that planned this, how important that is to frame what I'm going to talk about next, because we don't have enough trauma therapists to be able to meet all the trauma that's happening. And when she said that there was a 500 people waiting list for the trauma therapists in Austria, we have to act quicker, sooner, and we need to all be having these flags in our hands saying, all right, we can do this, the tools in our hands. And so that's what I'm hoping to share a little bit with you today.
Und den Vortrag, den Edita gehalten hat, da hat sie gesagt, hat gezeigt, dass es wirklich wesentlich ist, dass man diese Beziehung haben muss. Und das ist, man hat auch gesehen, dass man nicht genug Therapeuten hat. Wenn man schon sieht, dass 500 Leute auf einen Therapeuten warten, da muss man erkennen, dass man muss schneller agieren. Und man muss einfach die Flagge nehmen und sagen, jetzt, wir müssen das machen.
So first of all, my background is I'm a trauma psychotherapist, and that's what prompted me to create the Trauma Resource Institute. Because of that knowledge that there weren't enough psychotherapists, and yet there was this whole burgeoning area of neuroscience that was really in the hands of those of us that have the advantage, really from the middle and upper middle class, as I saw in America, which I've also seen in other parts of the world.
Und mein Hintergrund ist, ich bin Traumapsychotherapeutin, und darum habe ich diese Trauma-Ressourcen-Institut gegründet, weil ich gesehen habe, man hat nicht genug Therapeuten. In Amerika, die Mittelklasse und so, da gibt es nicht genug Therapeuten. Und genauso wie in den USA oder überall anders in der Welt auch.
And I thought it was interesting that Edita mentioned Thailand as one of her case examples, because what really first impressed me when I was in Thailand after the tsunami and working with people that had experienced the horrific tidal waves, tsunamis rather, is that I knew biological approaches to healing trauma were very effective, but it was clearly demonstrated to me that if I had a team of 9 people, there is no way we could really impact. There were like 5,000 people died alone in, I was in Khao Lak, a small part of Thailand. There's no way that you can impact the trauma that each person experienced. So that was the beginnings for me to think about, how can you make a trauma intervention accessible, affordable, tangible, and transportable?
Und es ist interessant, dass Edita das Beispiel von Thailand gebraucht hat. Weil ich war in Thailand nach der Tsunami und ich wusste, es gibt eine biologische Angehensweise, um Trauma zu heilen. Aber man kann nicht mit einem Team von 9 Leuten, 5.000 sind da gestorben in Kolak, wo ich da zur Zeit war. Man kann nicht mit so einem Team überhaupt einen Einfluss haben. Das ist einfach zu viel. Und da habe ich diese Idee bekommen, dass man Traumatherapie zugänglich machen muss und man muss das auch leisten können. Es muss mehr zugänglicher gemacht werden.
And the first thing I learned, that it had to be in the hands of all of us, not only the experienced psychotherapists like myself, like Edita, is that each and every person has the possibility to not only learn wellness skills that help them reduce the symptomology of trauma, but they could learn how to teach it to others to spread it in a wide scale way.
Und das erste Ding ist, das liegt in all unseren Händen. Wir müssen das alle machen. Jeder hat die Möglichkeit, den Stress durch Trauma zu reduzieren in Wohlheitsübungen, und wir müssen das alle machen, zusammen machen.
And so the name of the model is called the Community Resiliency Model. But one of the things I learned that was very important is that we needed to talk about what else was true, not only about the trauma. And if we dove only into the traumatic experience, then people didn't also remember what else was true. And this is why I start with these 3 questions today, and really want to encourage the participants today to give an answer for yourself to either one or all of them. And then I'm going to invite you to put them in the chat. And then maybe our wonderful translator, if they're in German, can say what people have put into the chat. So what or who uplifts you, what or who gives you strength, or what or who helps you get through hard times.
Und dieses Modell, das heißt Community Resilience Modell. Und man muss auch lernen zu sehen, was braucht man noch, was muss man noch wissen, wenn man sich nur auf die Erfahrungen von den Leuten, die Trauma fokussiert, dann weiß man nicht mehr, was noch die Wahrheit ist. Und da möchte ich Ihnen gerne diese 3 Fragen stellen, und Sie können die in den Chat schreiben. Was oder wer richtet dich auf? Oder was oder wer gibt dir die Kraft? Oder 3. Frage, was oder wer hilft dir, schwere Zeiten zu überstehen? Von Elaine, okay, meine Großtochter, meine Enkelin richtet mich auf. Ich habe gestern mit ihr den Tag verbracht. Bianca, tanzen, authentische Beziehung zu haben, in der Natur sein, meditieren. Ingrid, meine Nichten, Jakob, Anrufe, Telefonate und Kaffee mit guten Freunden. Ingrid, Bewegung, Musik, Tanzen, Pantomime. Gabriele, in der Natur sein, mit jemandem zu reden, der zuhört. Körperliche Übungen. Valentina, meine Mutter, meine Freunde, tanzen. Michaela, Meditationsübungen, Freunde, Dalai Lama. So meditation practice, friends, Dalai Lama, and faith.
I notice there's a lot of dancers here. I like to dance too. So there we go. All right. So notice how I smiled, and I'm looking around and I see smiles in others as well. And so this is kind of if we had a garden, and if we were going to talk about the trauma, which could represent the weeds in a garden, but if we didn't first till the soil to nurture it with well-being, and that could be planting the vegetables or the flowers in the garden, then, oh my goodness, it's a very important thing that I've learned. What we pay attention to grows. So the more that we cultivate our well-being, but it's not only just thinking about these things. I'm going to ask you another question right now, which is, what do you notice on the inside when you think about one of the things that you put into the chat? Like when I think about my granddaughter, I actually got taller, and I can feel her right here in my heart. And notice how I put my hand in my heart. I didn't do that on purpose. It happened automatically, because we have all sorts of gestures that support our well-being. And that can happen in the best of times and the worst of times. And I have seen this on and I will talk a little bit more about the Ukrainian Humanitarian Resiliency Project in just a second. But I really encourage you all to notice what is happening inside when you think about.
Ich sage immer, ein Trauma ist wie ein Garten, und Trauma oder Garten, und der Trauma das Unkraut in dem Garten. Und man muss erstmal die Erde reticulieren. Man muss wirklich sorgfältig für etwas, man muss sich um etwas kümmern, damit das wächst. Und so ist es auch mit uns. Wir müssen zuhören. Und ich möchte noch eine Frage in den Raum stellen. Was habt ihr bemerkt drin in euch, als ihr diese Sachen in den Chat, diese Antworten in den Chat geschrieben habt? Bei mir, als ich gesagt habe, meine Töchter und meine Enkelin, ich fühle mich größer, bin plötzlich größer geworden. Ihr das in den Chat schreiben. Was für Gefühle habt ihr jetzt? Ja, Verbindung, Nähe zum Körper, Wärme, Ausdehnung, Freude, Gefühl von Gemeinde, Zugehörigkeit, Herz öffnet. Ich fühle Schönheit, aber auch bin auch traurig.
Yes. And so basically what I'm going to invite people to do is that sometimes you might experience like Jakob Brunner did, that I can sense some beauty, but also sadness. It doesn't mean that sadness doesn't exist, but also there's something else that exists too. And that's what I've seen. So even if I can invite you, Jakob Brunner, to even notice the sensations connected to the beauty and see how they may hold the sensations connected to the sadness. And notice it's about the sensation.
Ja, wie ich gesagt habe, Jakob hat geschrieben, er fühlt Schönheit, aber auch Traurigkeit. Aber was für ein Gefühl hat man dabei? Wie fühlt man sich? Hat die Schönheit was mit der Traurigkeit zu tun? Wie ist das Gefühl?
All right. So what's very important about this, Michael, is that we learned from Edita earlier that trauma resides in the body, but also healing resides in the body as well.
Was wir von Edita vorher gelernt haben, ist, dass das Lernen kommt von dem Körper, ist im Körper drin, aber auch Trauma, aber auch das Heilen ist auch im Körper drin.
And so these skills of the community resiliency model can be used across the lifespan with very young ones as well as very old ones. It can be used across cultures and also when people have different abilities and literacy levels.
Und diese Fähigkeiten von diesen CRM, das kann man mit jungen Leuten anwenden, mit älteren Leuten anwenden, mit verschiedenen Bildungsstufen. Das kann man wirklich überall anwenden.
Okay. I'm going to skip over this one. I want to talk a little bit about when we talk about in this model, we help people understand what has happened to their body. And I'm steering away from using the word post-traumatic stress disorder when I'm talking to large populations. That doesn't mean that in therapeutic settings, I would still use that diagnosis.
Ich möchte, dass Leute verstehen, was ist mit deren Körper passiert. Ich möchte nicht so gerne das Wort diese PTBS gebrauchen, aber ja sicher in einer klinischen Umgebung ja, aber ich möchte den Leuten beibringen, die müssen lernen zu sehen, was mit dem Körper passiert ist.
And this brings me, when I talk about this, to our Ukrainian Humanitarian Resiliency project, is that we gave 4 webinars on the 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th of February. And then we were asked by the Ed Camp whether we could have daily support meetings. So we have met with them almost every single day. The last 3 weeks, we changed to 3 days, three times a week. But these daily support meetings, they have shared with us how important it is for us as a world community to not only see them and to hear about their experiences, but to provide the skills of the community resiliency model and more to this population that are living through war in real time, not waiting till after the fact, but during.
Okay. Und dieses ukrainische CRM-Projekt, wir hatten 4 Tage hintereinander, vom 26. bis 28. Februar, 4 Webinare, ein Webinar täglich. Und wir wurden gefragt bei EdCamp, ob wir tägliche Besprechungen haben können. Da haben wir wirklich täglich Besprechungen gehalten. Und dann wurde es 3-mal pro Woche. Und wir haben gesehen, auch da wir in einer globalen Gemeinde leben, wie wichtig das ist, von diesen Erfahrungen zu hören und die Fähigkeiten, den Leuten die Fähigkeiten zu geben, Leute in Echtzeit, nicht nach dem Kriege, nach dem Ganzen zu helfen, aber wirklich während die Geschehnisse passieren.
So we're trying to help people understand the biology of toxic stress and see that what's happening to them during or after traumatic experiences is not because they're mentally weak or pathological. It's because, like the whole world, they have a biology that's responding to extraordinary events.
Wir versuchen den Leuten zu helfen, zu verstehen, was dieser toxische Stress ist. Die ganze Welt wir müssen das verstehen. Wir müssen denen auch helfen, damit zurechtzukommen, mit diesen Sachen umzugehen.
And so I want to just focus on what toxic stress is at this point, because during life, we're going to have positive and tolerable stress. Sometimes we need positive stress to take action, to get things done. But toxic stress is what's happening in Ukraine right now, what's happening in many people's lives all over the world as they have unrelentless experiences that are causing them to not be in what we would call their zone of well-being.
Ich werde fokussieren, was toxischer Stress ist. Sicher, das Leben hat Stress, man hat positiven Stress, wo man Aktion ergreift, man bringt Sachen, macht Sachen, aber toxischer Stress ist, was jetzt passiert in der Ukraine zum Beispiel, wo die Leute, die haben zu viel Stress, die sind zu viel Stress ausgesetzt, dass sie nicht wissen, wie man damit umgeht. Wir müssen denen helfen, das Ganze zu verstehen.
And so the toxic stress, it means it's kind of like, Michael, is like if you put the foot on the accelerator of your car and you didn't have a brake.
Toxischer Stress ist, als wenn man die Gaspedale drückt im Auto und keine Bremsen hat.
So the chemicals that are being pumped in our system are not stopping. And that is what causes us to go for this process called allostasis, is a fancy term. It goes on too long. And that's what changes our immune system, that opens up the array of not only physical symptoms, but mental health conditions.
Und diese Chemikalien da, wenn man diesen toxischen Stress hat, diese Chemikalien, die in unser System reingepumpt werden, die stoppen nicht. Und dann kriegt man dies, was man Oleostasis nennt, und das verändert das Immunsystem.
And so I'm going to skip forward. I want everyone to know that they're going to get a copy of these slides. And I'm not going to be able to talk about everything that's on a slide because I want to get to one final point before I stop and turn it over to the next speaker. But we have a way of talking about what happens to us inside that is similar to what Edita talked about. But we've changed the language, and we've done a lot of work in terms of making language more accessible. And so she used the window of tolerance. And I found that a lot of people didn't understand what tolerance meant, or a window even of tolerance. So we call it the OK zone for children. Children actually named it. And for adults, it's either the resilience zone or the zone of well-being. I don't know if we still have the person from Colombia, but la zona de bienestar, it's one of my favorite ways to talk about it.
Und wir wollen, wie Edita schon vorher gesagt hat, sie hat diesen Begriff Toleranzfenster. Aber viele wissen nicht, was ist Toleranz, was hat es mit dem Fenster zu tun. Wir möchten aber einen Weg finden, dass man darüber redet, was in uns vorgeht. Und wir haben den Begriff geändert. Die Kinder haben den Begriff ausgesucht. Für Kinder sagen wir einfach okay, die Okay-Zone. Und für Erwachsene die Resilienzzone. Und das ist, wie wir das dann nennen.
And so, Michael, you can see here, this is people in the resilience zone. So you could be angry, you could be sad. As one little boy said to me, you know, I'm okay sad, but I can get okay mad. And that means you have a normal expression of emotion, but you're still not so rageful or so sorrowful and in the river of sorrow that you can't get out of it. This is life. This is the vida, the vitality of life.
Man sieht hier, das ist die normale Kurve im Leben. Ein Junge hat zum Beispiel gesagt, ich bin okay, traurig, aber man kann auch okay ärgerlich sein, aber nicht so extrem, dass man wirklich dann sehr ärgerlich ist oder sehr traurig ist. Und das ist das normale Leben.
And as we've been working with our Ukrainian colleagues, and I want to say that on day 50, we had 80,000 views on EdCamp Ukraine's Facebook page. So people are listening to this information. I think because what they have said to us and what we've learned through our research, it's simple, understandable, and they can use it right away. And the next one, I think, will explain what happens to us, okay, which many of us have experienced. Go ahead, Michael.
Und wir haben mit den ukrainischen Kollegen gearbeitet und am Tag 50 haben wir schon 80.000 Views gehabt auf unserer Website, für die EdCamp-Webseite. Und man hat uns gesagt, weil es einfach ist, 3 Dinge einfach ist, das ist verständlich und jeder kann es gebrauchen.
So, I think you might have said that already, but on EdCamp, not only maybe on C Learning, if you go to C Learning's website, which is free, well, I'll put the link in the chat in a bit. All this material has already been designed, and it is in German as well, and in Ukrainian, and in English, and I think it's in 17 different languages right now, that you can get all this information today to start sharing it with children. And if you are in Austria, which you are in, and you're working with children that have come across the border, you can start learning this information to start imparting to kids. And we also are encouraging people, because it's designed for teachers to be able to integrate this into their school system, which is so exciting. But so the resilience zone is gone from this, as you can see, because sometimes we go out of our resilience zone. So we can get stuck in the high zone or the low zone. When Edita was talking, she talked about hyperarousal and hypoarousal, which are fancier terms to talk about this.
Und das Seelernprogramm, das ist schon alles, die Materialien sind schon alle dort, die sind schon alles entworfen und schon in 17 Sprachen, Deutsch, Englisch, Ukrainisch. Und ihr könnt das jetzt sofort heute Zugriff dazu haben. Und in Österreich zum Beispiel kann man schon anfangen, das zu lernen und das den Kindern beizubringen. Und es ist auch entworfen für Lehrer, für Lehrende zu machen. Und Sie sehen hier, die Resilienzzone ist weg, weil, wie Edita schon gesagt hat, es gibt diese Hyper- und Hypo-Gegenden, aber hier hat man das passiert manchmal im Leben, dass man ganz oben ist oder ganz unten ist.
So what I have learned is that any one of us can go into the high zone or low zone. If you asked me, Elaine, have you ever been in those zones? I'd say, yeah, I've been in the high zone. I've been in the low zone. But I know how to get back into the resilient zone now, and I don't get stuck there. So when we have trauma, the kind of post-traumatic stress injury, we can get stuck in the high zone, and you can only stay there so long before going down into the low zone and getting stuck there. And you can go between the two. So, but there's a way out. That's the exciting part. I'm going to say what that's next, and then I'm going to stop. I promise, Ingrid. I know I'm going to get the hook, so I'm going to stop. I promise. All right. So there you go, Michael.
Es gibt diese hohe Zonen, die tiefe Zonen, die Tiefen und Höhen. Und wenn man mich fragen würde, Elaine, hattest du schon mal einen ganz hohen oder tiefe Punkt? Ja, sicher. Aber ich weiß, wie man wieder da rauskommt. Und ich kann wieder diese Resilienz, diese Zone finden. Und mit Trauma ist das manchmal nicht. Man ist außerhalb dieser Zone und man muss den Leuten beibringen, den Weg rauszufinden.
So I went ahead, and again, I'm going to send all this to you so you have it in the future. You can always email me if you want more information about what I didn't get to cover. But we have 6 very simple skills. And one of the most important ones, and the one that's central, which is really directly directed to what Edita was talking about earlier today, is called tracking. And that means that each and every single one of us can be the best readers of our own nervous systems, so that we can tell the difference between sensations of distress and sensations of well-being.
Das Beste, was wir herausgefunden haben, ist dieses Tracking. Man kann wirklich dann den Unterschied, man kann den Körper zuhören und dann kann man sehen, geht es uns gut oder geht es uns nicht gut.
And so, for example, when I asked you in the beginning, what uplifts you? And many of you put many answers in the chat. So those are sensations of well-being. And so to be able to notice those, it saves it to your hard drive. And what you pay attention to expands. But at the same time, if let's say you have experiences that people are experiencing during war, for example, and we see this every day when we talk to our Ukrainian friends, they have sensations of distress, but they are noticing the sensations of distress, not just the thoughts, but the sensations. And now they're learning how to shift awareness to the sensations of well-being, which can turn down the volume of those sensations connected to the high zone or the low zone.
Als ich vorhin gefragt habe, was bringt uns hoch? Und das gehört zum Wohlgefühl des Körpers und das wird sozusagen auf der Speicherplatte gespeichert, auf der Festplatte gespeichert. Das gehört zu diesem Wohlgefühl. Aber was jetzt passiert mit den Leuten in der Ukraine, die haben wirklich Gefühle, die fühlen diesen Stress von diesem Trauma. Und die wissen, das gehört zum Trauma, zu dem Tiefen. Und die fokussieren nicht mehr auf den guten Sachen.
One person said to me once, oh, my body's been talking to me my whole life, but I never knew how to talk back until I got this superpower. I realized I could use this as my superpower to get out of those traumatic experiences that laid inside my body.
Jemand hat mir einmal gesagt, mein Körper hat mein ganzes Leben lang mit mir geredet, aber ich wusste nicht, wie ich zurückreden konnte, bis ich diese Superkraft gefunden habe. Und jetzt kann ich mit meinem Körper reden.
And we have many things in our life that we can track that are pleasant. I'm not going to read through every one of these, but these are there and you'll get a copy of these slides. It's not only what we smell, what we see, what we touch, what we taste, the sounds, movements like dancing, all the different things that you put in the chat already.
Das sind so ein paar Sachen, die man nachspüren kann. Das Riechen, was man sieht, was man schmeckt, berührt, Geräusche. Das werde ich Ihnen alles schicken, die ganzen Folien. Sie können mich jederzeit per E-Mail kontaktieren.
These are there for you to look at, but I know that many of you are working with people that are in very great crisis right now. And what we've also learned, I've been to many, many crises after the fact. And what I learned is that there is always a survival story. So when I ask people, can you tell me the moment you knew you had survived? Can you tell me the moment that help arrived? Or who or what is helping you the most now? It often is a moment of incredible existential sensations of well-being and relief.
Ich habe viel mit Traumaopfer gearbeitet, aber nachdem das Geschehen. Und da habe ich immer gefragt, den Leuten gefragt, die es überlebt haben, können Sie mir sagen, wann Sie wussten, dass Sie überlebt haben und was für einen Moment hat Sie, wann ist die Hilfe angekommen oder wer oder was hilft Ihnen am meisten im Moment? Und das war immer so, die Antwort war immer so eine kräftige existenzielles Gefühl, dass man sagt, okay, ich möchte überleben.
And so I want to say, in ending my part, is that, you know, we've been meeting with our Ukrainian colleagues. It has been such a sacred experience for our team. And we have a team of volunteers that are all community resiliency model teachers, or have been trained in the body-centered model for therapists that we have through our organization called the trauma resiliency model, similar to somatic experiencing sensory motor psychotherapy. But I do want to say, as I end the section, that if we craft interventions, the body has got to be included. And this is the way that we can, I think, spread well-being, because even small children that we've seen in C-learning can learn how to track their nervous systems and be able to start to learn how to move out of distress into sensations of well-being. On one of our calls, there was a mother who had, she was in Spain. She is just, in Portugal rather, she had just gotten there with her son. And she was really worried about him because they knew no one. He had no friends. And the mother said, oh my gosh, he's asking me for a toy to play with because he has no friends. And so we explained to her that children often, you know, of course, they use play to help them through traumatic experiences. And so we asked her, what toy did her son want? And she said, he wanted a stuffed animal of Yoda. And then everyone kind of applauded and said, oh my gosh, think about what kind of well-being you have provided for your son, that he would think about one of the wisest characters in the Star Wars series that he would want for his friend. And when we said that, the mom, you could just see the sense of it shifted, right? That the mom said, well, this is hard. But now knowing that, and knowing that was really part of her son's well-being, that she felt differently about it. So I think that what we've seen, I'm sorry, Michael, I'm going too much.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm going on and on and on.
Wenn man eingreift in diesen Trauma, der Körper muss mit einbezogen werden. Ich hatte zum Beispiel eine Mutter, die ist gerade in Portugal angekommen, die haben einen so kleinen Sohn und die war besorgt, der hatte keine Freunde und dann hat er sie gefragt, er wollte ein Spielzeug haben. Und dann war sie ganz besorgt, er hatte keine Freunde, der wollte ein Spielzeug. Aber Kinder gebrauchen das Spielen, um sie durch die traumatische Situation zu helfen. Und dann habe ich die Mutter gefragt, was für Spielzeug? Und dann wollte er von dem Krieg der Sterne so ein Kuscheltier, Yoda, und einer der weisesten Charakteren in dieser Serie. Und da hat die Mutter gesehen, dass es nicht alles immer so aussieht, was man denkt. Man sieht das wirklich, dass der Junge ist in die andere Zone reingegangen.
And so if people want to see our offerings, they're all on EdCamp Ukraine's Facebook page. And they've just started a YouTube channel as well. where if you know people in Ukraine, if you are in Ukraine, they've cataloged the different offerings by dealing with panic attacks, dealing with children. We have had all sorts of people that have expertise to help. So anyway, thank you so much, Ingrid, for this opportunity to speak about what we do.
Und wenn Sie unsere Angebote sehen wollen, die sind der EdCamp Facebook-Seite, die haben auch einen YouTube-Kanal. Und das hat zu tun mit Panik, mit Kindern und die ganzen Sachen, die sind dort, können Sie wirklich, könnt ihr euch das anschauen.
Okay, so thank you very much, Elaine, for this amazing presentation. It's really impressing, the information and the way you share it with us, and at least for me, you give me the feeling, yeah, that how you do it and how you can reach it. So really, thank you very much. And I think probably we could talk about it 1 hour more. I just also would like to watch the time. And we have 2 other speakers. So now you're both, Kateryna and Jakob, you have both presentations. So Jakob first is about C-Learning program. Kateryna about peace education in Ukraine. And I think maybe Kateryna, you can start now because it's also connected with the topics that Elaine mentioned. And in the end, Jakob, first, you can talk about C-Learning. What was the basis for the further work of Elaine? Okay, so Kateryna, please, can you continue and share your experience?
Thank you for the floor. I would like to share some information about what was there in Ukraine before February 24 this year. Actually, Ukraine was in the process of school reform and educational reform in general, which started in 2016, and it was aimed to shift from knowledge-oriented results to competence-oriented results. So we were developing 10 competences that educational system is aimed for, and year after year, the school graduates should obtain those new competences that we were looking for in Ukrainian citizen. I don't know if there will be a short.
Okay. Hier wollte ich Ihnen zeigen, wie das in der Ukraine war bevor 24. Februar. Wir waren gerade dabei, das haben wir angefangen 2016, das Schulsystem zu reformieren, umzuwandeln. Und wir wollten von einem wissensbasierten System auf ein kompetenzbasiertes System umschalten.
So a lot, like now you see the key life competencies which were listed by Ukrainian Ministry of Education, which were aimed at the secondary school, but primary, secondary, and high school in Ukraine. As you see, there are like the 8 civic and social competences were of the focus of things that I was doing. So I'm now educational advisor on peace education, and previously was working in non-formal education with young people, nowadays mostly focusing on working with teachers. The competence that was mostly that was one of the central competences in the educational reform in Ukraine, and what I was mostly working with.
Hier sieht man die 10 Kompetenzen, die man einführen wollte. Und es gilt für die Grundschule bis zur Highschool. Und ich war da, das ist, was ich gemacht hatte, und da war ich Beraterin und ich bin heutzutage die Lehrberaterin. Und diese Nummer 8, das ist eine Zentralkompetenz, wo ich jetzt dran arbeite.
Mm-hmm. So there you see competences that includes human rights education, wealth and healthy lifestyle, something that Elaine was mentioning today, and I believe Jakob also could develop more. Ideas of democracy, justice, tolerance, anti-discrimination, equal rights. So those were the focus of my work before the war.
Okay, das waren, wie Sie sehen, Menschenrechte und gesundes Leben und soziale Kompetenzen mit Demokratie verbunden und Justiz und Gerechtigkeit. Und das ist mein Fokus.
Mm-hmm. All those parts of the competence were very much connected to the topic of culture of peace and peace education in general. So when we were developing and promoting peace education in Ukraine for the last 3 years, we were taking in mind this culture of peace. So developing the competences that will let people live in peace for the sustainable sustainably, let's say. When we were talking about peace, we were mentioning 2 types of peace. And the one that we were aimed by our program and the activities that we were developing in Ukraine, it was positive peace. So it's developing the attitudes, institutes, and structure that create peaceful societies that are stable. And so this is what we were aiming for, and trying to avoid understanding of peace as a negative peace. So negative peace could be understood as absence of violence. So we were saying that we are not aiming at absence of violence only, but we were aiming at developing some competences that will provide, that will let our society live in peaceful life for the long duration of time.
Okay.
Ja.
Was mit der Friedensbildung zu tun hat, wir wollten eine Kultur von Frieden errichten. Und wir wollten diese Kompetenzen entwickeln, dass man nachhaltig in Frieden leben kann. Das sind so die Einstellungen, die Institutionen, die Strukturen, die dann diese nachhaltige Gesellschaft kreieren kann. Und wir wollten nicht einfach einen negativen Frieden haben, wo man einfach sagt, okay, es gibt keine Gewalt. Wir wollten das wirklich nachhaltig machen.
Mm-hmm. And what were the steps we could take, what methods we could develop or share with the teachers and then bring back to school to our pupils? So here you see this kind of umbrella approach of peace education. We say that there is no one peace education approach, but rather different methods and different approaches that we bring together under this umbrella of peace education, and that we were sharing with Ukrainian teachers in Ukrainian school, developing different programs, different projects in Ukraine.
Wir haben gesagt, okay, das sind die Schritte hier. Wir wollten Schritte, Methoden entwickeln mit Lehrern, die dann diese Methoden dann den Kindern beibringen können. Da gibt es aber nicht eine einzelne Angehensweise. Wir haben zusammen mit diesen ukrainischen Lehrern gearbeitet in den Schulen, und Sie sehen hier die Punkte, worauf wir fokussieren wollten.
So we were, for example, developing a program on or developing skills of teachers how to use nonviolent communication in their schools. We were trying to bring in mediation to schools to let students solve their problems, their local their own conflicts by peer mediation. We were talking about CE learning and promoting CE learning in schools, like letting people, young people, to learn about their emotions and try to communicate them quite well. So that was we were doing before the war.
Okay, wir wollten die Fähigkeiten entwickeln, dass die ohne Gewalt die Kommunikation ohne Gewalt, dass die Studenten auch untereinander ihre Probleme lösen können, ohne Gewalt. Wir haben auch diese C-Lernen eingeführt und dass sie auch die Kinder, die Studenten umgehen können mit deren Emotionen.
So now you see the drawing of a 7-year-old Vika from Kherson, which is now occupied since first days, so now for 70 days occupied by Russian troops. And this is the picture that Vika drew by herself, showing the reality she lives now. So for now, it's 74 schools destroyed totally in Ukraine. 700 of them are damaged. Around 1,200 schools are or educational institutions are on the occupied territories. So this is the situation we have right now, and that's the reality we have. So here you see the library of Chernihiv that was bombed, but this building was a historical building. It survived the Second World War, and now it's totally destroyed by Russian troops. Here you see the professor of Uzhhorod University that is now a soldier of Ukrainian army, but he didn't let his students away. So he is making a lecture, being there on the front line and protecting the country, and also making online lectures for his students. Here you see a 8 years old boy that fled from Mariupol. Like, when I look at his eyes, I don't believe that he is just a kid. He's a person that survived and learned and had such experience in his life that I believe that I didn't have in my life. We were talking about toys for the kids. Yes, we are lucky that lots of kids were fled with their mothers, and they are in safe now. And that I'm really thankful for everyone who is making efforts to protect those women and kids in Europe. But we still have kids that were under occupation. They were under shelling, and they have the reality that everything is destroyed around them. So this is a kid that was born in 2014, the first stage of Ukrainian-Russian war. And now the war came to his home and destroyed everything that he has around. And this is the toy he's playing now. So this is a girl, this is 4-year-old girl, Alisa from Mariupol. 2 days ago, she was evacuated from Azovstal, the factory that was where civilians were hiding from Russian shelling for more than 2 months. And she was there with her mother, that is medicine. And but when the UN evacuation operation came there, they could take only Alisa because her mother was stopped at the filtration camp of Russian troops. Imagine, it's 21st century and we still have filtration camps. That is unbelievable, you know. Like I still can't believe that it's happened now. So 4-year girl, she was taken by other adults to another region, and we don't know what's happening with her mother, as she has some information being medicine there. So helping soldiers, injured soldiers, she might be taken and never let go by the Russian soldiers. So that's, I would say, a quite hard and dangerous situation that we have now. And I would say that there is not that many understanding of what will happen now. So how the educational year will start. So far, the Minister of Education in Ukraine stated that safety is over any marks or results of educational year and so on. So they decided to shorten the educational year for the old schools in Ukraine, and they also simplified the graduation exams for the students. In order to, I don't know, save their resources, their mental health, and so on. Nevertheless, we still keep on thinking how to help the students, but also the teachers and think how to start a next educational year. So far, it's quite hard to understand what will be next. Do we have enough opportunity to actually survive, to keep the territory, to keep the people alive? Will the educational year start online or offline? Do we have enough schools to bring kids there? Do we have enough teachers that didn't fled Ukraine but still in Ukraine and is able to work? But moreover, I think that now it's not even the major thing is not that much the science or the competences or I don't know, the marks that teachers and pupils will get, but rather how healthy will be all the members of educational process. When I say healthy, I mean both physically and mentally. So people that survived the situation and still is very unknown, with unknown future, they really need support. They need to learn how to explain to children what is war, how to react on this, how to justify the losses they have. And all of this, it's quite difficult task for a grown-up, but for an adult, but also for an adult that survived the same situation with the same kids, because we were in the same country. So those are the tasks that are in front of Ukrainian educational system. I know that right now there are some attempts in making changes into educational program to make more focus on civic competences, to think how to, for example, again, how to talk about history, how to justify or how to explain some things in history, or what skills to develop in pupils. When we were working with teachers recently, we were asking, so what are your needs for now? Lots of them were not even talking about their psychological or mental health, because I'm not sure if they are able to learn something right now, but they were rather saying that we need some information about how to protect our students from mines. there are a lot of regions that were shelled with such missiles that spread bombs around, and now kids could go outside, pick a bomb, and bring it to home and just make an explosion. So that caused several children deaths already in Ukraine. So some things that we were not expecting, or we were not aiming, or not even imagining in our future, they totally changed our life. So we were developing peace education, thinking about positive peace, thinking about what competence we can develop in our kids to make them find a common ground, talk the same language, love other people, stop discrimination, and so on. And now we need to think about peace education as something that could protect the lives. So something that we teach children what types of missiles they are, like how they can protect themselves, or what to pick or what not to pick outside when you go to the nature. So those are quite big challenges that we are facing right now. And I think that some competences that were developed before, some understanding of what is resilience, what is emotions, how to cope, how to understand what is happening, is quite important. And I believe it really helps our teachers, the ones that we were working with. Nevertheless, the first thing that should be done is to bring safety, bring physical safety to the cities, towns, to make a school that has a roof, that has walls, that has tables to learn and to sit in. So I'm really thankful for all the people who are supporting Ukraine right now, and I'm looking forward for next cooperation and maybe some ideas how to bring, I don't know, for example, art therapy, some coping strategies, some other methods that were already developed somewhere abroad, to bring to Ukraine to help teachers to overcome this trauma together with the children.
Thank you very much, Kateryna, for this presentation and for this insights. We cannot imagine, even because we never experienced war, so we just maybe can get an idea of what it means to be a teacher and to care for children, even if their own life is not secure at the moment. So thank you very much.
Soll ich kurz mal die Hauptpunkte?
Ja. Okay. Ja, bitte.
Die Hauptpunkte sind, ja, so viele Schulen wurden zerstört, oder 74 Schulen zerstört, 700 beschädigt, 1100 Lehrinstitutionen sind jetzt unter Besatzung. Und jetzt hat das Land sich entschieden, die Bildungsministerin, dass die Sicherheit muss das Erste sein. Was ist wichtiger jetzt, wichtiger als Noten? Und die haben dann entschieden, das Schuljahr zu kürzen und die Abschlussprüfung leichter zu machen, weil man kann jetzt nicht an Prüfung denken, wenn man sowas im Kopf hat, Krieg und so. Aber dann fragt man sich, haben wir überhaupt genug Lehrer? Wie geht es weiter? Und wir müssen dann auch den Kindern beibringen, diese Friedensbildung, aber auch, was für Raketen, was für Waffen liegen da, woher weiß ich, ob das jetzt gefährlich ist oder nicht und so. Und das ist dann immer so wichtig.
Yeah, for me, I really get an understanding how your 3 point of views, how your work is really connected and it needs each other. So so the projects that are offered at the moment really can exist and that they can be of use in. I really would like to invite you to ask any questions, or maybe Jakob first, if you have questions and not answers. So maybe you can put a question and other people can give you an answer. I don't know. Just, yeah, give us a time for questioning ourselves and the others, and maybe there are ideas for answering. Yes, please. Yeah, Valentina.
Thank you. Well, first I wanted to thank the three presenters of this part of the session because it's something that really touches me. I can feel related with Kateryna in what she's experiencing now.
Thank you very much, Valentina, for your comment and your words. Yeah, I completely agree with you. For me, I can understand it quite well. And yeah, for me, it's also the questions, how is it possible to bring learning in schools? And also what you mentioned, I think, Jakob, that it's necessary before a conflict starts. Or it not always must be a war. It's a conflict or something's not so good in a society. And yeah, when we can start before, then then we will have much more possibilities when the situation gets more difficult. Okay, thank you. Is there any other question?
Hi, Ingrid.
Yeah. Hi, Assad.
How are you? This is Assad Munzer. I'm from North Carolina and USA. I talked yesterday about mindfulness, and I loved every presentation today. It was so nice and right in line of, I'm also the district chair of the Peace Committee in our Rotary Club, which is interesting because I didn't know they're going to fit together today. So it's wonderful. And I'm from Lebanon originally, and we had a war in Lebanon for a long time and a lot of refugees and problems. So I understand exactly what everyone is talking about. And it's such a wonderful experience. I just want to thank Ingrid for letting me participate. And I would like to stay in touch, of course, with most of you and keep communicating and probably invite you, to be speakers in our Rotary clubs. And that would be nice to introduce our Rotary members, to problems that most Americans are not aware of because they haven't lived a war, they haven't had problems, like some other countries are experiencing. And but they are more and more aware now. Actually, this Sunday we had a picnic for the Afghan refugees, which are here in the Charlotte area. So they are working with the refugees, and we are learning more and more about positive peace and negative peace. Kateryna was talking about that, so that's a great knowledge and great education. So thank you very much.
Ja, ich bin Assad Munzer, ich komme aus Charlotte, North Carolina und bin der Regionsvorstand von der Friedenscommittee und vom Rotary Club, und ich komme ursprünglich aus Lebanon und ich kann das nachvollziehen. Wir haben viele Jahre Krieg da gehabt, immer noch, und ja, Ingrid, Dankeschön, dass Sie mich auch eingeladen haben, und ich würde Sie gerne auch vielleicht alle von Ihnen oder einige einladen, bei unserem Rotary Club zu sprechen. Die meisten Amerikaner sind nicht diese Probleme nicht bewusst, was wir jetzt in Europa oder in anderen Ländern haben, aber ein bisschen jeden Tag mehr und mehr, man wird mehr bewusst darüber. Und wir haben letzte Woche haben wir da mit einer afghanischen Gruppe geredet und haben auch gelernt über positive und negative negativer Frieden, was Kateryna Zeziulina gesagt hat. Und ja, aber vielen Dank dazu.
Thank you, Assad, for your words and for sharing this information. This really could open another possibility, maybe for cooperation or something like this, or just for connection and learning from each other. That's already a lot. So are there any comments of you? Yeah, Gabriele.
I just wanted to confirm that the C-Learning program is really a curriculum with high quality and very easy to implement, and we should implement it on national level in all countries, at least in Europe. But no, let's start for us in Austria. And let's be a little bit more realistic than my dreams are. And but it is. When I heard first from Jakob that the Ukraine was implementing it, and then the bomb started and the invasion started, I was crying at home, because I said, I mean, every war is not just, of course, but that the Ukraine, who is really on the way to teach peace, is now invaded by the enemy. I mean, that's what a catastrophe, and it's unbelievable. So, as Jakob said, we are full of questions on the one hand, but we are deeply, deeply touched, and yeah, we have to learn to stay with it. That's the first step. To name it, to stay with it, to be compassionate, to be self-compassionate, because when you learn this, then I think we can think about what to do. But first we have to deal with our feelings.
Could I also add, thank you so much. It was such a beautiful statement. But I want to alert you all, if you're not familiar with it, and I'll put it in the chat, of Catalyst 2030. Catalyst 2030 is a international convocation of social entrepreneurs that are working on an international level and trying to deal with the problems of our planet. And they happen to be having their events this week as well. And on Friday, there is a convocation, and it will be, I'm one of the presenters, but I think the important thing about it is that there's funders that are present that want to look at how do we fund innovation and change. Certainly C-Learning is one of those. But I think that if we can gather this kind of energy that I'm just hearing from some of the comments here, and you can just go to Catalyst 2030 and become a member, I really encourage you to do that, because I think there is, as much as there's horror in the world right now, there's also this gold vein of opportunity. And all of you who are present about thinking about what I often say is what else is true in the world. And I think that we can galvanize this kind of energy to make the kind of change that we all know I know is possible.
And I would give the opportunity to everybody just to share, because I know after 2 hours of listening and carefully be here in the moment, it's very important to share. So just if anybody needs to say something, we take the time now just to share just a last comment. And thank you to the speakers from my side.
Thank you, Jakob, for noticing. I want to appreciate the trauma education that is happening right now internationally. This is really important work everywhere, in war zones and peace zones, and in the end, it's all us, it's all humans. And as Gabriele said, it's so important to work in all the zones, like
of course, it's important to support in the war zones, but how can we support if we are not able to digest the impact? So I feel that trauma education is so important, understanding what is happening within our bodies when we are facing trauma, when we are facing traumatized people and facing our own trauma. In the end, we heard that it's 80% of the human beings that have been passing trauma. So there is a lot of people living in peace zones, wanting to support, but being in a freeze response. So I really feel like international trauma education is super important and I really want to appreciate. And thank you for organizing this event. And also saying that from my point of view, mindfulness, like to bring it back to the mindfulness topic, mindfulness is about like coming home to our bodies, understanding what is my body doing and how can I bring myself into a regulated state wherefrom I can respond to a healthy life in peace. So thank you.
Yeah, it's so true. Body, emotions, and thoughts.
Is there anybody who would like to share something, or is it a good end now?